Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about racing helmets. So the racing helmet has gone through a lot of development over the past decades, and it's one of the most important safety features used in a race car today. There's a couple notable items that are part of the modern racing helmet that I wanted to discuss today, or at least go over. The outer shell in modern times is usually made of a composite material. In most cases, even at the top level of Formula One, composite is definitely the correct term to use, because not only do they use carbon fiber, but they're usually going to be using other types of organic or inorganic fibers throughout the shell to compose the requirement. Not only the layers, the required safety, the layers that they use are going to be differing materials, and in different sections of the helmet they also tend to use different composite layups, which results in the highest standard of safety. The foam inside the helmet is also very well developed and researched to give the head, and more importantly the brain, the most gentle types of acceleration during impacts or moments where the outer shell is quickly decelerated. You want to be able to dissipate energy not only in the shell, but through the foam as well. In 2009, Felipe Massa had a serious accident in Hungary where he was struck in the head near the visor area with a spring that had fallen off of the car in front of him during qualifying. And thanks to that, we saw the development of what's a xylon strip that goes across the top of the visor. The xylon strip usually you'll find only in Formula One and IndyCar driver helmets. It greatly increases the strength of the frontal section of the helmet in case of any strikes to the front forehead area or directly to the visor. That was a piece that disproportionately increases strength just by adding that strip of xylon. Xylon being a trade name for a material which is also fibrous in nature and kind of like carbon fiber, but it is actually much stronger than carbon fiber. So the xylon strip has been something that's been developed since 2009. For the most part, you only ever see it in open wheel race car driver helmets because it doesn't really have that much of a use for closed cockpits, but of course the added safety can sometimes be worth it. The other part of racing helmets that have developed a lot over the decades have been the designs. The modern day racing helmet is a canvas for the driver to express themselves, show maybe a little bit of personality, maybe corporate branding and sponsorship as a billboard for the fans. And it's just also a very good outlet for artistic creativity. This is my personal helmet. It's a Bell M3. I bought it in 2008, and believe it or not, I actually painted it myself. Helmet designs have gone over a serious evolution over the decades, and I can't be quoted as to the exact history of helmet designs, but you can see through photos and old videos that they were actually quite simple through the 50s and 60s. They've probably been about the same through the start of whenever the first racing helmet was actually worn. But majority of the helmets you would ever see would include maybe a couple stripes, maybe a name. The most complicated helmets of the day were worn by drivers like Jackie Stewart or James Hunt. And they just comprised of just simple striping. And that continued on almost into the 80s. In the 80s, you saw slightly more complicated designs. And this was just the trend of the time, really, because the technology was available to do more complicated designs. The paints were available, the airbrushes were available. Technology was there, but there just was no desire to do so. Until the 1990s, things continued to develop. And then in the 2000s is really where the art really evolved really quite rapidly. And then all the artists really took the bull by the horns, and you saw all sorts of technique come about, much more complicated designs, much more involved much more time intensive, and the difficulty level for the designs went up considerably over the 2000s. In this helmet that I painted myself, this was my first helmet that I painted. I actually did paint a baseball helmet right beforehand that I used as a practice. So maybe technically you want to consider this as the second one. But I did a little bit of technique practice. I chose the design to try to be somewhat simple. And I used gold lines with majority green pearl, white pearl, and black and gray. And as you can see, it's rather simple, but I did try to throw some of those modern techniques in there. So we see a color gradient on the top of the helmet. You see the same type of color gradient on the bottom from green to black. You see some shadowing where I do some dark black or like light black shadowing through some of the white areas. There's also some shadowing here. And in this section of the green, you see where there's white that's been airbrushed in. So those are simple airbrush techniques that I used to try to make the design a little bit more interesting. I was quite happy with it. And then on top of that, over the years, I've had the space for the sponsor or various decals that I've used over the years. In addition, I have the chrome visor or silver visor. This is the radio for two-way communication. Inside, near the mouth, there's a microphone. And this is the plug where the earbuds, so that I can hear it go. And then this plug goes into the car's mini jack, where it'll go to the antenna. These are the clips for the Hans device, so I have one on either side, and that'll clip on, and then you know, that's another piece of the safety kit that a driver has to wear. So I was happy with the design. I would consider this more along the lines of a Formula One style helmet design, where it's not too simple and it's definitely not old school, but it's not overly complicated. Through racing, we see that helmet designs have kind of broken off into different trending groups. And I would basically consider them to be divided into Formula One style, karting, NASCAR, and maybe just plain old school, which you might see in certain different places. You can tell Formula One style helmets generally because they are somewhere in the middle of complexity in the design. Usually they won't be overly cluttered, but they will have a lot going on. They will employ a lot of modern techniques, where the most modern or coolest stuff that's out there right now would be chrome plating on helmets, which give you a perfect mirror finish. Also, you'll find a lot of mix of matte and gloss finishes are very trendy as well. And as far as the design's complexity, again, I call it a medium complexity because you can't actually have more elements thrown into one helmet design. But Formula One drivers tend to try to keep it a little bit cleaner. And then they're usually always followed by a halo over the top of the helmet, which is always a nice place for branding, for sponsorship logos, which is very typical for Formula One helmets. The other trend that we see that kind of is a clear divide is in the karting community. In the karting community, you'll find the most complicated helmets typically, and those will be characterized by a lot of technique, and sometimes you'll find the same types of techniques that are used in Formula One helmets, which will be the very expensive stuff like chrome plating and chrome finishes, and also the mix of matte and clear. But then you'll see a lot more airbrushing techniques, a lot more of the newest techniques, which include maybe decaling or transfer decaling of other types of images that are like more photographic. You'll also see more of just really interesting stuff. Hand sketching has been done on helmets. A lot of colors. Usually karters will also lean towards more color options than Formula One drivers will. And that's typically the case that you'll see. It's just that they tend to lean towards much busier designs. And, you know, sometimes it can come off really cool. Of course, there are exceptions to a rule, and then there are drivers that choose to have cleaner center designs. But on the average, top karters, you'll see that the painters will design for them really, really aggressive, very busy designs, which are very beautiful, and I think the helmet designers really enjoy to do. The other type of helmet trend would be off on the other side of the racing spectrum, which is in NASCAR or oval circles, where the helmets tend to be part of the branding for the overall car and the driver's suit. So usually they match, and they're usually very, very branded. They'll be part of the sponsorship package, and usually I guess the teams probably sell the driver's helmet as part of the deal. So the driver's helmet will tend to match the design of either the car or the driver's suit, which in some cases can be actually really cool because in road racing there's no necessity for the car or the driver's suit to match the driver's helmet. Really, the helmet design, in most cases, you want it to be part of your personality. Like in my case, I chose green because green is my favorite color, and black, I like to wear black a lot. And these are colors that really speak to me and that I really enjoy to look at. And your helmet's very, very important. It's part of your personal equipment. It's not owned by the team normally, and if it's yours, you want it to be an extension of you. And again, it's a creative outlet. In my case, my parents saw that I had some artistic ability when I was young, and I did have some artistic training. So this was also a way for me. I wanted to do it myself, not only because maybe it would reduce costs, but also because I thought it was a fun project to do. The true cost of painting your own helmet is not that cheap. I mean, the cost of having a professional paint it will range at the lowest possible end, probably about $400 for the job. But in reality, a professional helmet painter will charge between $800 and $1,200 for the job once it's all finished and everything. So I definitely think it's worth it. The true cost, I'll tell you, of painting this, I had to buy an airbrush. I had to buy the paints. I did not have to buy the air compressor because I already had that, and a couple other items that you have to do to buy to clean the airbrush and maintenance and make sure that everything is working properly, and then the finishing and everything. So altogether, I would say it cost me about $250 worth of things that I bought, and that's not factoring, of course, the time that it took. It took me about a month to do this. I used water-based auto color or air auto color paints, and they require a lot of patience. The coats to get full coverage required, at least for me, maybe more experienced painters have a better technique, but it took about 6 to 7 coats, and you have to wait about half an hour to an hour between coats to make sure that you don't have any pull through or pull off when you're removing the tape and everything. So it required a tremendous amount of patience. It took me about a month of total time to paint this helmet. And that type of work, I mean, if you factor in the cost of your time, then absolutely going with a professional painter is the way to go. But it was a fun project for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I definitely was happy with the end result. So no regrets there. But again, professional painters are definitely the best, and that's the way to go. But it was definitely a learning experience for me.